Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined once again by the one and only Naomi Brockwell of Naomi Brockwell TV, which you can find on YouTube, of course, from Australia. Doesn't live in Australia today, but we are going to go into some very interesting news regarding what's happening in Australia and the rest of the world as we see these massive shutdowns take place all over the globe. First of all, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Josh. It's great to be here again.
Absolutely. Now, while many claimed Australia's response to COVID-19 was not that aggressive, many would beg to differ. As I report this today, Australia has announced they will ease restrictions in 4 weeks. But in the meantime, they've unrolled a lot of hugely Orwellian surveillance programs that are not likely to disappear once this is all over. From articles like this one from 7 News saying coronavirus tracing phone app may become mandatory if not enough Australians volunteer to this one out of Summit News that says Australian police use surveillance helicopter to track down remote campers. It appears control is far more in the government's playbook than safety concerns. What are your thoughts on the incremental crackdowns on the most basic freedoms in Australia? Obviously, this is nothing new, but this whole coronavirus thing has really blown this out of the water. What do you think?
Absolutely. Well, I think that this has blown it out of the water in a lot of countries. You know, me personally, I'm taking the virus very seriously. I self-quarantined a long time ago, and I think that individuals, it's good if you can make that choice to make that choice. It's a different scenario when you have governments coming in and dictating what businesses are and aren't essential, like how much you can and can't sell goods for, what goods you can and can't sell. I mean, there are so many things that the government basically has nationalized at this stage, which becomes terrifying. And that's not even to start mentioning all of the tracing and surveillance that they're trying to up the ante on. And that's most worrying to me, because if you look at Australia, they have not had a good history with encryption, with internet surveillance, with all kinds of crazy nanny state controls. If you look over the past few years, I mean, they overtly have internet surveillance. They have internet surveillance that they admit to that America wouldn't even admit to. Americans doing it as well, but the Australian government is openly saying, yeah, we're looking at everything. Furthermore, they've essentially banned encryption, which is terrifying in an age where we're moving increasingly into the digital world. Right now, digital means is the only way that people are communicating and hanging out with each other. We need more than ever to be relying on safe, secure, robust digital platforms. And Australian government undermined that a while ago when they essentially banned encryption. And then we've got like cash bans and all kinds of things, which if we're looking at the state of the economy right now and all of the bailouts and all of the money printing, I mean, a lot of people predicted that this was just
Yeah.
going to be so that people couldn't get their money out of the banks when push came to shove, which
Well, that's
is
one of the
really
things I wanted to talk with you about, Naomi, because we've done an interview before talking about the cashless society in Australia
Mhm.
and globally, and obviously this has become a more incrementally desperate issue for a lot of Australians that don't want to have to deal with everything being tracked. And there appears to be a strange connection between Australia and China as far as centralized cashless systems and surveillance goes. Do you see Chinese-style rollouts in Australia as well as other places around the world following this global shutdown? Is it going to be utilized to, like you mentioned, bail-ins, bank runs? I mean, what can you do if everything just goes completely cashless in the banking system?
I know it is a scary situation. I think that an outcome of this virus is we are going to lose a huge amount of freedom. And that's something that we have to wrap our heads around. Now, the antidote to that is maybe this agoristic approach where you start to invest more into decentralized systems. Let's support the people who are trying to build the future of freedom, build the decentralized, YouTube platforms. Libraries is a great alternative. Float is another alternative to social media where it's not just this very centralized, surveilled system. I think that the more we can support the people who are trying to create these decentralized systems, the better off we'll be. But I do predict that things are going to become more and more heavy-handed. And it's like it's a complicated situation, right? Because on the one hand, that you look at the stats in Australia and they just tapered off their infection rate.
Mhm.
They've done an incredibly good job. Today, WA, Western Australia, which is where I'm originally from, announced that they, for the first time, have no new cases. They have no cases there, and that's I mean, that's great, but the outcome of that is so many people being forced into bankruptcy. I mean, surely there was a better way. Surely if there was more testing or more targeted approach, or maybe people who were quarantined, if they were proven positive, you know, there are all kinds of things that other countries have done that didn't shut down their economy, right? Look at what's happened in Taiwan. They didn't shut down the entire economy and they've still done an incredible job, right? So I do, like, although I completely understand that it's a good thing to try to taper off this virus. As soon as they open back up again, this virus is going to spike. We're going to have second waves and fourth waves and, you know, 17th waves of this. So what's the solution? Are they going to just clamp down, shut down, quarantine everyone for like the next 10 years?
I know it makes no sense, because people like Dr. Fauci in the United States says that we don't see the economy opening up again until the last coronavirus patient. It's like, how long would that be? I mean, that's crazy. And, you know, I have to think, you know, we have epidemiologists that are coming out now and saying that the shutdowns might actually prolong it and make it even worse over a longer period of time. More chance people can catch it. No vitamins, sitting inside all day, no sun, all that kind of stuff. But also it's worth pointing out that even Bill Gates himself said, I think it was 3 weeks ago now, that it's more likely that the shutdowns will kill more people than the virus itself, which concerns a lot of people, because he's still like, let's keep the shutdowns going. But what I find crazy is the economic impact of all of this, because that's more likely to kill people than anything. And if you understand economics, which I know you do, just over a long period of time, if you have the economy shut down, we're entering a global depression. That's going to lead to unbelievable consequences. So how will these shutdowns?
Sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, like, on that note, like, I think what America's doing is crazy. You just see all the bailouts that are even happening for universities that have like tens of millions of dollars in endowments, and they're being given, you know, all these millions in bailouts. That's insane to me. But Australia is even worse, because they've shut down all these businesses that are probably going to go bankrupt. And if they don't go bankrupt, they're like hanging on by their teeth. But they've gone further and said that not only do you have to shut down your business, you have to continue to pay your employees for the duration of the shutdown. And I mean, how are these businesses meant to pay people for services that these people aren't producing with income that they're not receiving? I mean, it's devastating to look at, you know, you family businesses that families have been trying to struggle with for 30 years, and then the government comes along and says, oh, you're gone. And that's it. They won't be able to open back up again. So the financial devastation in this is terrible. And when you're talking about like this prolonged idea, like this idea that we keep shut down until the last cases, I mean, that's crazy. The reason why we had a quarantine in the first place, the idea was to get the number of cases in line with the amount the hospitals could handle, right? We didn't want a huge influx of people all at the same time entering hospitals, because it would be an overwhelm of the system that would create a huge amount of deaths. Now, this can't just happen indefinitely, because to flatten the curve and keep it under there for forever is going to drag it out like 10 years, right? It just is not feasible. So what should have happened is, so we shut down for a little bit, maybe it's, you know, a small amount of time, right? Maybe the government mandates it, whatever. Like, let's say that we're okay with that, which I'm personally not, but let's say we're okay with it for a short amount of time. In that short amount of time, we should have seen all of the red tape, all of the ridiculous bureaucracy that is stopping hospitals from expanding and creating new beds. Like, the only reason we don't have the capacity, that we don't have enough ventilators, that we don't have enough equipment, is because there are all of these rules that prohibit hospitals from expanding. Now, during the shutdown, did we see the government open that up and say, all right, hospitals, go ahead and create all of these resources? Like, we didn't. So what are we doing? Are we just hanging around to watch this thing somehow disappear and like just keep doing this for the next 10 years? Because I mean, I hate to see what kind of a society we'll be in, and what kind of a centralized authoritarian society will be in that.
It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. And also, most people don't understand this. And that goes back a long way, especially with Australia being noted as the world's longest boom, and how we're seeing one of the world's largest or longest booms coming to an end here into a recession. My personal thoughts are they've been in a recession for a long time, but, papered over like insanely. Agree. But right now, even the most mainstream economists, Keynesian economists, are saying, Yeah, it looks like we're entering into recession in Australia. Well, what's that going to do to the housing bubbles in Sydney and
Let's
Melbourne? I
give
mean,
them a big clap for their astute observation there as the US, Australian dollar plummets and I mean,
yeah.
yeah, the Australian economy hasn't been doing well. And we, as you said, you mentioned these links with China. They buy huge amounts of our iron ore. They buy huge amounts of our resources there. And then when they stop doing that, the Australian government, the Australian economy sort of follows suit. So there are lots of reasons why the Australian economy is going down. But to add all of this to it, I mean, I have friends who, so let's take a step back here. I think that in a situation where your actions affect other people so dramatically, some people, it's worth taking that risk. Some people will take that calculated risk and then say, like, I need to do this for survival. And I think that it's up to an individual to decide that for themselves, because right now we have governments deciding which businesses are essential and which ones are not, and that is a terrifying ground for me. Is that going to change? Is that going to, let's say all of this closes up and we have to kickstart the economy. Is the government then going to say, well, the virus has ended, but we need to focus on essential resources right now to kickstart the things that we really need now that all this is done? And then is that going to continue? Are there going to be all these rules and regulations around that? I mean, we've had price fixing all across the world. Like, governments love price fixing and telling us how much we can and can't spend on certain equipment. But like, is that going to continue as well? Like, I mean, if plants have to shut down because of this and they don't have the capital to reopen, if this causes a permanent shift in the types of industries that we see prospering, maybe those resources become more scarce and the prices have to go up. Is the government then going to say, well, no, we're putting a cap on the amount that people can spend on these goods that are now more scarce? I mean, the whole thing is like, it makes my mind swim. And coupled with all of this, we've got this anti-encryption bill in America called the Earn It Bill that is in Congress right now, which is terrifying if this gets through. And of course, it's under the guise of we're protecting children. And every time they have a bill that says something like that, it's an awful bill. You know that it's going to be something terrible, like the Patriot Act,
Well, whenever the government comes in and says we're here to protect you, those are the most dangerous words you could possibly hear.
Right. And I mean, and you look at like when they say they're protecting people, and right now they're going ahead and arresting people for being out in the street and putting them in jail where they have no medical care and they're with other people who may or may not be infected. I mean, it doesn't seem like they're protecting people at
Well, think
that
of it
stage.
this way, Naomi. We've got people that are murderers and rapists that just got let go from prisons all over the U.S., but Ross Ulbricht is stuck in a solitary confinement. People like my friend Kingsley, his father, Michael Edwards, is stuck in solitary confinement. Again, victimless crimes, and they can't even prove most of the crimes in that case anyway. But I mean, they're stuck in there while they're literally removing murderers and rapists from prison and then arresting people and putting them in prison for walking their dog. I mean, what kind of backwards, doublespeak, Orwellian kind of world does that?
No, it's really awful what's been happening. And the worst thing is that you don't even have this kind of moment of vindication, right? Because you would hope that, like, people have been saying this is coming for forever. You've had reports for years saying, like, well, this needs to happen and we need these procedures, we need this equipment and all of this, and people have ignored it. And then when all of this started, we saw what was going on in China, and the US government kind of sat on their hands. And then you had the CDC, having a monopoly on testing, and the FDA making sure that monopoly continued, and then the FDA coming in and banning other kinds of testing. They banned out-of-state testing. They made sure it was all centralized, all happened in Seattle, like Arizona, I can't remember which one it was, but they made sure that it all had to happen in this centralized place. So they created this entire bottleneck. They got rid of all the competition around this, and it created this entire disaster. I mean, they are a huge part to blame for the state that America is in right now because of the delay in testing. And because of that, the only way that the government feels that they can make up for that lack of action at the start is to come down with these draconian, hard-nosed policies. And, there's not even a moment of people saying, like, we told you we should have opened up testing. We told you we should have been more careful with all of this. We should have done what South Korea was doing and testing everyone and doing targeted quarantining, creating red and green zones. Like, there's not even a moment of saying, we told you all this would happen and now we're in the state we're in, because the state we're in right now, it's so devastating that you can't help but just feel sad at where we are. you know, and they don't care either. You're not going to see accountability. The CDC that was created entirely for this purpose, they're not going to say, well, you guys dropped the ball and screwed up, your organization will shut you down. No, they'll probably be given more funding. Same with the FDA. They created this problem and they'll probably be given more funding too. Like, I mean, there's no accountability in any of this, and it breaks my heart.
And they'll just print money. And, you know, most of us that have been watching the monetary system over the years have seen something like this coming. Maybe not this exact scenario, but we've seen a collapse coming. We've seen this kind of thing being inevitable at some point in time. Obviously, the majority of people have not. And, you know, we've tried to break through to those people as much as we could over the years. And, well, we couldn't to the most extent of, you know, what we're seeing right now when people rush into a store and try to get food last second and they can't, you know, pile up their food. They haven't saved. Most people have no savings. But look, we have in places like the UK, they're going into shopping carts to see if you're buying essential items. You have people getting arrested for looking at the sunset. I mean, they're banning the sale of seeds in many places so that you can't grow your own food. But let's talk about something positive here for a second. So it's hard to see the positive in this noise because it's just so crazy right now and it's devastating for everyone. And honestly, it's hard not to be saddened all the time by what we're witnessing. Everyone's out of work. No one has money. But however, there are certain solutions that people can look to. And this is something that you've gone into for a long time regarding cryptocurrencies and how you could, I mean, this is a question I have to ask about is that since you're a big supporter of crypto, how can decentralized cryptocurrencies stand up in this difficult time to centralized cashless surveillance systems? You know, a lot of people conflate the two. Obviously, there are two very different things, but can you go into how people could, in your opinion, utilize something like crypto to get around this insanity that we're witnessing today?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, I mean, what we're seeing at the moment with all the money printing around the world, like a lot of people are predicting there's going to be hyperinflation, all this. I'm not convinced because we didn't see that in '08. I'm not convinced it's going to be as bad as everyone's predicting. It's this apocalypse. But what is going to happen, and you hit the nail on the head there, is this tracking system, this surveillance system. They're already going into people's shopping carts. Are they going to be looking at our credit cards and seeing what items we're purchasing? You know, there's all kinds of surveillance going on that I think we should be really worried about right now. And one of the biggest reasons why I am a proponent of cryptocurrency is because it helps take that power away. Like, I think, I mean, right now, even if we don't see massive hyperinflation, there is going to be an effect. There was an effect in '08. We did see some inflation. It wasn't the apocalypse everyone predicted. But we definitely saw this divide where money just got injected into the pockets of these, you know, crony friends of the politicians. And that is just not a society that people should want to be involved in, that very unfair society where certain people get, you know, chosen over others and then get pushed up. I think that's terrible. So first of all, I would say cryptocurrency allows you to opt out of that system. And if you are finding ways, like whatever ways possible, just find ways where you can choose crypto instead of fiat. If there's a situation where you can pay someone back in crypto, maybe choose that. Just like, it's difficult. It is more difficult to use cryptocurrency. I'm actually going to be working with Joel Valenzuela from Dash. He's doing like a 30-day, here's how to only use crypto series. So I'm going to be helping him out with that. I love that guy. Yeah, I'm going to be looking at other currencies as well and just kind of helping him get the message out about how we can be replacing different things in our lives using cryptocurrency, because it is possible. He's been out of the banking system for forever, right? So I think just the opting out thing is so tremendously important right now, because as long as you're using your credit card, as long as you're using your bank account, you're continuing to support this system that is creating this incredibly unfair world that is, you know, eliminating everyone's savings through incremental inflation, perhaps hyperinflation if these bailouts keep continuing, this quantitative easing keeps continuing. So the opt-out system is foremost in my mind. The other side of things people talk about is like this store of value. And honestly, I think that crypto is just, we're not there yet. You saw when the markets crashed, crypto crashed as well. And I think that's a given. The markets are very correlated for a bunch of different reasons. One of the reasons is, you know, people are participating in both traditional financial markets and crypto. So it makes sense that they would be moving money from one to the other. If one goes down, they might need to cover their losses. But there are other reasons why there might be correlations as well. But the fact is that we did see crypto lose a huge amount of value. Now, what's going to happen in the long term, I think, is the most interesting thing, because this is the first crash that we've seen where we've had cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
In '08, we didn't have an alternative. All of this disaster happened and people were stuck and forced to use fiat currency. In the US, you're forced to use US dollar. And suddenly people have a choice. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know whether crypto is the ultimate savior, but the most important thing is now people have a choice. They do get to go to whichever one they choose. And just that is just such a tremendous element of freedom right there, to be able to make a choice about what you're using in your life, you know? So that makes me incredibly happy. But long term, I honestly think that crypto is going to win out, because if people are looking at the US dollar and saying, well, it's lost 97% of its value over the last 100 years, these people would have to be stupid to hold it for another 100, right? When there are other choices out there. And I think that there are different cryptocurrencies that are better choices. I personally love privacy coins. I think that is a huge element. Like I love Bitcoin, love Bitcoin Cash. I love currencies that could be used as everyday cashes. And then there are other currencies that are less ideal for everyday use, but tremendously important. And that's because they have these privacy elements that I think people need to start thinking about in their lives, because controlling the flow of money is just a very powerful tool that the government uses. And if you can obfuscate transactions and just try and keep an element of your life private, you're probably not doing anything illegal at all, but just that just the fact that you can keep an area of your life private, I think is tremendously important for a balanced society.
Yeah, we're going into a very, very polarizing, transparent future, and not in a way that's good. Not transparent for the government, transparent for us. But it's interesting because we see things like Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies obviously follow suit with the markets because people are investing in it. And but I think also when you see the stock market crash and you see the Federal Reserve print trillions of dollars and try to pump up the stock market, which actually leads to deflation for a temporary period of time, if they're just pumping the stock market with all this currency, I think the devaluation of the US dollar especially will lead to more people going into something like Bitcoin, like Monero, like many of the privacy coins. I think that will be one of the catalysts. But obviously we have to look at the difference between store of value, investment, and currency. And there's multiple different properties that go into all of that. So people need to know the difference. But anyway, I really appreciate you joining us today. Can you tell everyone where they can find more of your work? Because I think you're one of the most insightful people out there talking about these issues right now with a clear head, and I really appreciate
that, Josh. It's a very nice thing to say. So all of my platforms can be found on my Cointree page. That's cointr.ee/Naomi Brockwell. I have my memo.cash and my miners.com and my float.com and my library address and my YouTube channel. All of that is on there. So just go to cointr.ee/Naomi Brockwell. Also has all of my crypto donation addresses as well. You can send messages. Do you have one set up yet, Josh? You should
get mine set up. You messaged me like 3-4 months ago. I apologize. I got to get on that.
And then people can send you messages. They can send you donations, say, Josh, I love your stuff, and send that. Because one of the things I get as a content creator is people will sometimes send me tips for my work, and I'll put my addresses on my videos, but then I'll get these tips. I have no idea who they came from. So Cointree, you can send a message with them. So it's really good. So you can find everything I do there, and my channel on YouTube is Naomi Brockwell TV.
Great. And how long does it take to sign up? Because I might just get that up before this video
2 seconds.
2 seconds. All right. I'll be there, and there'll be a link below the video as well for that for me as well. I really appreciate all the hard work that you do, and I hope to talk with you again soon.
Thank you so much, Josh. You too.
Like what you see, Hero M? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Woznicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well. And finding us on alternative social media platforms like float.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging and, of course, monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.